So I lined up my airplane, got a good trim, good flight, got down, and I took my last big deep breath. I pulled the trigger. And the whole front blew up on me. And I was so surprised I was still alive. And because the Germans always used tracers. And if a tracer ever hit the contrail that close, it would ignite the whole thing. And I couldn't believe I was still alive. So my debris of my airplane didn't fall in this mess that I was going to make down there. So I went around the other side, and I came back, and that guy was still up there. He didn't see me because I was on behind me. Well, to leave the gruesome part out of the story, I took care of him. And we finished up the job and came home.
This certainly was not Ohr's last brush with death. Ohr remembers having engine problems near the Polesti oil fields, almost to the Russian border. This mishap caused Ohr's longest flight, 7 hours.
I got up there, and we flew quite a bit of time. We got up high. We were up 20,000 feet. You know, 20,000 feet in the dead of summer, it could be anywhere from 60 to 80 degrees below zero. We're flying along, somebody says, "You're on fire, you're smoking." And I looked back, and boy, I saw this smoke coming out of the back, you know, see the trail. And I looked, and the whole squadron was there with me. And I was leading a flight. I was leading 4 airplanes. So I had to look in the cockpit to see my instruments, because I always flew by the seat of my pants, so to speak, because I never looked at the instruments. When I land, I never looked at the instruments. And I had to look to see what was going on. And yeah, my oil temperature was going up. My coolant temperature was rising. So the first thing I could think about was to get up as high as I could. So I started climbing. And looked around, and there wasn't a plane with me. They all left me. So I said, "Holy cow," I said, "I got the whole world by myself here." And so I got up, and I wanted to get up to close to 30,000 feet. But I knew I couldn't get up there and make any headway, because if I had any headwind, then I would lose that, because I didn't have enough power, because I was throttled way back. So I dropped down to about 25,000 feet. And instead of going directly across to the Mediterranean, I wanted to go west, because Sofia, if you look at the map, a direct line from the oil field to our airfield, you had to fly right across Sofia. And I didn't want to be lame going across Sofia, because that's where all the airfields were. So I headed west, due west, still deep in enemy territory. Then when I got almost right angle to my little Italian base, I had a choice. Did I have enough to go north and south and get to base, or should I continue on to Switzerland? So I thought about it a little bit, just an instant. And when I flew near Switzerland, that country was like this, those mountains, those Alps. Maybe you've seen them. Valleys were just like this, the mountains. I said, how in the world am I going to land this thing in there? So I did a quick right turn. I headed for the field. I changed my altitude, exchanged it for speed, and I nosed it down and got back to the field. And the whole problem was, had a little tiny, maybe 1 drop in a second or so, oil leak in the fan bearing that forced the air through to cool the oil and the coolant. So when that got up to that altitude, for any time, it would freeze and the fan wouldn't go. So here I am up there. The way I came home, 750 miles, the round trip, without that oil circulating through my fan. It was a good thing the air temperatures was real cold up there. That kind of helped, but still, when I came home, I didn't have any oil, any gas, or coolant. I don't know how that thing flew, but it got there. And when I got back to the field, it was closed, because I was 2 hours late already. The mission had been closed. They'd already counted me out, except my crew chief. I didn't know who it was. But there was a guy sitting at the end of the runway. Looked like to me he had a rifle in his hand. He was sitting on the steel mat in the runway. And I couldn't figure out what he was doing there. So I didn't even circle, because I was afraid this thing was going to blow up. So I made one turn, came back, I landed, and I rolled down to where he was. And here was my crew chief with a rifle. And I jumped out of an airplane because it was hot. Just to touch it, it was hot. And I dove out off to one side because I thought the thing was going to explode. So he came rushing out there. He thought I was hurt. He had his rifle. I said, "What are you doing with that rifle?" He said, "My tent buddies wouldn't let me stay out here because I knew you were going to come back. And they said you weren't. So I had to take my rifle so they'll leave me alone. Because they were going to hog tie him and take him back to camp, because I wasn't coming back because I was 2.5 hours late. I was a captain that time. I could have gone back and I could have chewed a bunch of guys out. Even the commander, I could have given it to him, because he was right there. And I made up my mind that as I was coming up through the ranks, I see something wrong, I'd say, I don't know why, but I'd say if I ever got to be a commander, that would never happen. He left me. The first thing he should have done was sign the rest of my flight to take me home. So there'd been 3 of them to take me home. Then I could have come right across the enemy territory anywhere. And but you know, you in a situation like that, you had to have total animosity, or otherwise you're licked. You have to know, as the flight leader, I guess, you're there long enough that you know everybody that's in the flight. You know how they're going to respond because you're flown with them. Because I like to fly with, everybody, not one group like ABC flight. They fly together. I like everyone to fly everybody else, because there's always a lesson to learn. You just can't learn everything.
Ohr flew a B-25 bomber during his time as an administrative pilot. The plane was stripped down and passenger seats were installed. As an administrative pilot, Ohr often flew men and officials across Europe.
One day the colonel wanted to go on leave, so I had to take him. He wanted to go to Cairo, so I took him to Cairo, and then I had to stay. I couldn't come. I was going to come back and fly missions, but nothing doing. He said, "I'm down here." He said, "I'm going to make sure that I'm going to get back." So he made me stay with him. So we took an extra bunch of men down for rest. So we stayed at the rest camp.
When Ohr came back from the war in January of 1946, he still worked as a pilot. But not long after returning, Ohr decided that was not what he wanted to continue doing, being as life on base would not be good for a family. Instead, he turned to dentistry. He worked as a dentist for years until his wife became ill and he retired so that he could be her caretaker.
I was on my 4th tour of duty when they told me I had to go home. I didn't want to go home because I knew what I was doing. As a matter of fact, about the time I got into my 2nd tour mission, when I wasn't flying, I felt I was missing something. And I finally discovered what it was, and that was I was addicted. I was addicted to adrenaline. And when you took off, you have your adrenaline flowing. Boy, I just felt cool as could be. So I just felt that I was addicted. And I just didn't want to leave when I had things going, but they told me I had to go home. I've been there too long.
Fred Ohr started his military career as a young man in the Idaho Cavalry. Though being a pilot had been his lifelong dream, it seemed at first that it was not meant to be. But if the desire is great enough, it will happen. And happen it did. Ohr's achievement as a pilot landed him in the American Combat Airmen Hall of Fame. He received dozens of medals during his time as a pilot, including the Distinguished Flying Cross and many other honors. But amongst all the experiences and wisdom he had obtained during his 6 years of service during World War II, the one belief that he will always stand by is the absolute need for education.
So I think one thing, this is fine, all this guns and ammunition and all that stuff, that's fine. But I think the key is in education. I think the nation that's on top in education, if you want to call it ruler, I hate to use that term, but be ahead of all the other nations, is you have the people educated. Because there's enough things to do that every person can serve without doing something that they really didn't want to do. Yeah, let the dirty work go to us guys that want to do that kind of work. You know, that are committed to do it. But then still there's so many casualties and all that you're going to have to run over somewhere. So they're going to have to go in and get extra people to come in, so they're going to have to probably go into it again. But if we get the educational stuff up enough and get enough brains behind this, maybe there will be a dividing line where we can kind of live together. I don't know. That's a possibility.
A good education is a powerful thing. An educated person has the ability to change the world. That is why Fred Ohr stressed the need to educate the younger generation. He has hope that if we can show the following generations the mistakes that have been made and showcase the blunders of those that have come before them, that we can find a way to fix them. It is these men like Fred Ohr who are the true teachers. They are the people who allow us to see what is going wrong in this world and inspire us to try to fix it. Because it is up to us. Our parents and grandparents have done their part in trying to help the world be a place worth living in. Now it is our turn. It is our responsibility to carry on what they have begun. Maybe not necessarily everything they have done was right. Maybe there is a better, safer way that we can negotiate. Maybe our generation, an educated generation, can take the problems plaguing our country and other countries and find a way to fix them and stimulate peace. And maybe we will be able to find a way to do these things without war.